a werewolf shifter romance audiobook written by Michael. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. The treaty papers were a death sentence dressed in royal decree. I stood at my grandfather's door while he read the words that would scatter my pack like ash in winter wind. 43 souls. All that remained of Embervale. All depending on me to save them from extinction. The Alpha King's offer sat on the table between us, edged in black ink and colder promises. Marry him by sunrise, or watch everyone I love become refugees with nowhere left to run. They called him the Winter King. Said his heart was frozen. Said he'd killed his own father and mounted his enemies' heads on his gates. I had 12 hours to decide if I'd bind myself to a monster. 12 hours before I'd stand at an ancient altar and offer my blood to a man whose silver eyes held nothing human. I should have been terrified. Instead, I was already planning what I'd wear to my own damnation. Chapter 1. The oil lamp flickered as I pressed my palm against the cold stone wall, trying to steady myself. Through the thin wood of my grandfather's study door, I could hear him breathing, slow, deliberate, the way he always did when delivering bad news to the pack. I should knock. Should walk in with my spine straight and my chin high, the way he'd taught me. Instead, I stood frozen in the narrow hallway of our pack house, listening to parchment crackle as he unfolded what I already knew would destroy us. Mira, his voice cracked through the door. Come in, child. Hiding won't change what's written here. I pushed the door open. The study was exactly as it had always been. Shelves crammed with pack histories, a desk scarred by generations of Ashmore hands, and my grandfather seated behind it looking 100 years older than he had this morning. The letter lay spread before him, its wax seal broken. Even from the doorway, I could see the crimson stamp pressed into the thick paper. The bloodthorn sigil. A wolf's skull crowned with thorns. My stomach dropped. How bad? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Rowan, my grandfather, our pack elder, the only family I had left besides my younger sister, lifted eyes that glistened with unshed tears. Sit. I'd rather stand. Mira, please. I crossed to the chair opposite his desk, but didn't sit. Instead, I gripped its back, my knuckles going white against the worn wood. Tell me. He cleared his throat. By decree of Lord Casimir Thornridge, Alpha of the Northern Reach, the Silverpaw Pack is hereby found in violation of the Treaty of Red Oak, having failed to provide tribute for 4 consecutive seasons. The words landed like physical blows. For seasons. We'd been struggling, yes, but I hadn't realized it had been that long. The penalty, Rowan continued, his voice breaking, is dissolution. By the next full moon, Silverpaw ceases to exist. Our territories will be absorbed. Our people will be scattered to other packs as refugees, if they're accepted at all. No, the word tore from my throat. There has to be another way. We can beg for an extension. Offer double tribute next season. I'll go to the capital myself, and there is another way. Something in his tone made my blood run cold. Rowan reached for a second document I hadn't noticed, this one edged in black. His hand trembled as he placed it atop the first. Lord Thornridge is aware of our circumstances. He's prepared to offer a full pardon, complete forgiveness of all debts, and a guarantee of Silverpaw's continued sovereignty. Hope flared in my chest. Then, in exchange for you, the room tilted. What? Lord Casimir requires a mate. Rowan couldn't meet my eyes. The Ashmore bloodline carries old magic, even if it hasn't manifested in generations. You're 21 unmated, and... He finally looked at me, his face crumpling. And he wants you, Mira. If you agree to wed him before the next full moon, your pack will be spared. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My hands were shaking so violently I had to let go of the chair. Lord Casimir Thornridge. My voice sounded distant, hollow. The scourge of the Northern Reach. It wasn't his official title, but everyone knew the name. The Alpha who'd carved his territory from the bones of 7 other packs. Who ruled through fear and absolute dominance. Who'd killed his own brother in a challenge fight and left the body displayed for 3 days as a warning. He's not what the stories say, Rowan began weakly. Isn't he? I spun toward the window, pressing my fist against my mouth to hold back the scream building in my chest. How many packs has he destroyed, grandfather? How many wolves have disappeared after crossing him? Many. His honesty was somehow worse than a lie. But he's also kept the Northern Reach stable for 15 years. His people are fed, protected, prosperous. And he's never, Rowan hesitated. The rumors about his cruelty. Much of it is exaggeration meant to maintain his reputation. He's ruthless, yes, but not needlessly violent. You're defending him. I turned back, anger finally burning through the shock. You're asking me to marry a monster, and you're defending him. I'm asking you to save your pack. Rowan surged to his feet, slamming his hands on the desk. 37 souls, Mira. 37 people who will be homeless, packless, vulnerable to any rogue or rival who wants to pick them off. Your sister included. Lyra. Gods, Lyra was only 19. Still learning to control her shifts, still so bright and hopeful, and my anger collapsed into something heavier. When? I whispered. When what? When did his messenger arrive? How long have you known? Rowan sank back into his chair. 3 days ago. Lord Thornridge's second, a man named Varen, delivered the terms personally. He said. Rowan's jaw worked. He said if you agree, the ceremony must take place within the week. Lord Casimir is already en route to Clearwater Ridge. You would meet him at the old stone circle at dawn. 3 days. He'd known for 3 days and hadn't told me. You should have told me immediately. I was trying to find another solution. His voice cracked. I've sent messages to every allied pack, called in every favor I'm owed. No one will help us, Mira. We're too small, too weak. Our territory isn't valuable enough to defend, and our bloodline. He gestured helplessly at me. The old magic in the Ashmore line hasn't manifested in 4 generations. To every other alpha, we're a liability. But not to Lord Casimir. No, to him you're valuable. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I didn't want to examine. What does he know about the Ashmore magic? I asked slowly. Why does he think it matters? I don't know. Rowan looked genuinely confused. The bloodline records are vague. There are hints of power, healing, some kind of gift with pack bonds, but nothing that's shown itself in living memory. Your grandmother had dreams sometimes, prophetic ones, but that's all. Healing, pack bonds, prophecy. Nothing that would make me valuable to a tyrant. Unless he knew something we didn't. I need to think, I said, already moving toward the door. Mira, we don't have time. 3 days. I whirled on him. You had 3 days to find alternatives. I need 3 hours to process that you're selling me to the most dangerous alpha in the north like I'm cattle. I would never. That's exactly what you're doing. The truth of it settled into my bones, cold and final. And we both know I'm going to agree, because the alternative is watching everyone I love suffer. So give me 3 hours to grieve the life I thought I'd have before I smile and walk toward the slaughter. I left before he could respond, taking the stairs 2 at a time until I burst out of the pack house into the cool evening air. Silverpaw territory stretched before me. 60 acres of forest and meadow, modest homes scattered among the trees, smoke rising from chimneys as families settled in for the night. 37 souls. Such a small number compared to the great packs, but each one precious. Each one mine to protect. I found Lyra exactly where I knew she'd be. Perched on a flat boulder overlooking the western valley, her sketchbook balanced on her knees. My sister's dark hair caught the dying light as she worked, her hand moving in quick, confident strokes. She looked up as I approached, and her smile died at whatever she saw in my face. What happened? I climbed up beside her, and for a moment, I just sat there, trying to memorize everything. The way the sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose. The distant sound of wolves calling to each other across the territory. The warmth of my sister beside me. Mira. Lyra's hand found mine. You're scaring me. We lost the pack. Her fingers tightened. What? I told her everything. The decree, the dissolution order, the marriage offer. With each word, I felt Lyra trembling beside me, her breath coming faster. No, she said when I finished. No, there has to be another way. We'll leave. Take everyone north to the free territories. We'll start over. With what resources? What protection? I kept my voice gentle. Lyra, half our pack is elderly or children. We'd never survive the journey, let alone the winter. Then we fight. We appeal to the Council of Alphas. The Council won't intervene in a treaty violation. I squeezed her hand. I've already thought through every option. This is the only way. You can't marry him. Lyra's voice broke. Mira, he's a monster. Everyone says so. He'll hurt you or worse, and I'll never see you again. You don't know that. Don't I? She pulled away, jumping down from the boulder. The scourge of the northern reach doesn't take a wife for love. He wants something from you. The bloodline, the old magic, whatever it is. He'll use you until there's nothing left, then discard you. Maybe. The admission hurt. But if it saves you, saves everyone, then it's worth it. Not to me. Tears streamed down Lyra's face. Not if it costs me my sister. I climbed down and pulled her into my arms, holding tight as she sobbed against my shoulder. Listen to me. Whatever happens, wherever I go, I'm still your sister. That doesn't change. And maybe. I forced hope into my voice I didn't feel. Maybe the stories are exaggerated. Maybe Lord Casimir isn't as terrible as everyone believes. You don't believe that? No, I admitted. But I have to try. We stood like that until the sun disappeared below the horizon and the first stars emerged. Finally, Lyra pulled back, wiping her eyes. If you're going to do this, she said, her voice steadier now, then I'm coming with you. I won't let you face him alone. Lyra, don't argue. I'm coming. She crossed her arms. You can't stop me. I wanted to refuse. Wanted to keep her as far from Lord Casimir and his world as possible. But I also knew my sister. Once Lyra set her mind to something, avalanches couldn't move her. You stay with the pack escort, I finally said. You don't approach him directly, and the moment he gives permission, you come straight home. Understood. She nodded, relief washing over her face. Then we'd better go tell grandfather to prepare for a wedding. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Word spread quickly through the pack. Their alpha's granddaughter was marrying Lord Casimir Thornridge to save them all. Some called me brave. Others looked at me with pity. A few, the ones who'd lived long enough to remember the old stories, looked at me with something else entirely. Fear. The Ashmore bloodline. Old Marta said as she helped me into my dress the morning of the ceremony. Her gnarled hands were surprisingly gentle as she fastened the buttons along my spine. Your great-great-grandmother had the gift, could heal mortal wounds with a touch. That's just a story, I said, watching my reflection in the small mirror. The dress was simple, deep blue silk that had belonged to my mother, altered to fit me. Traditional braiding held my dark hair back, woven with silver thread and sage. Stories come from somewhere, child. Marta's eyes met mine in the mirror. The Ashmore magic is real. It's just been sleeping, waiting for the right catalyst. And you think Lord Casimir is that catalyst? I think he's the kind of wolf who knows things others don't. She finished the last button and stepped back. There, you look like a proper bride. Strong and beautiful and worthy. I didn't feel worthy. I felt like a sacrifice being dressed for the altar. Lyra appeared in the doorway, her own dress a soft gray. It's time. The escort is ready. I took one last look at myself, at the girl I'd been, the life I'd imagined having. Then I turned away from the mirror and walked toward my fate. The journey to Clearwater Ridge took most of the night. Our escort consisted of grandfather, Lyra, and 6 of our strongest wolves. A laughably small wedding party compared to what an alpha of Lord Casimir's status deserved. But it was all we could spare. Dawn was just breaking when we reached the old stone circle. The ancient site sat atop a barren hill, exposed to the elements on all sides. 9 standing stones, each twice the height of a man, formed a perfect circle around a central altar stone. The place hummed with old magic, the kind that made my skin prickle and my wolf stir uneasily. And standing before the altar, absolutely motionless, was a figure that made every instinct I possessed scream at me to run. Lord Casimir Thornridge was taller than any wolf I'd ever seen. His frame was powerful in a way that suggested barely contained violence, all sharp angles and coiled strength beneath dark traveling clothes. Black hair fell past his shoulders, and even at a distance, I could see the cruel beauty of his face, all harsh lines and predatory grace. But it was his stillness that truly frightened me. He didn't move as we approached, didn't acknowledge our arrival. He simply stood there like a statue carved from shadow itself, radiating a presence that made the air feel heavy and difficult to breathe. Sweet mercy, one of our escort whispered. That's him. A second figure emerged from behind one of the stones, a lean wolf with iron-gray hair and cold eyes. This must be Varen, Lord Casimir's second. Elder Rowan of Silverpaw. Varen's voice carried across the clearing. You bring the bride? I do. Grandfather's voice was steady, but I felt his hand tremble where it rested on my shoulder. My granddaughter, Mira Ashmore, comes willingly to fulfill the terms of our agreement. Then let her approach. This was it. My last chance to run, to refuse, to condemn my pack and flee into the forest with whatever honor I could salvage. Instead, I stepped forward. Each step toward the altar felt like walking through deep water. The closer I got to Lord Casimir, the more oppressive his presence became. Power radiated from him in waves, making my wolf cower and my hands shake. 10 feet away, his head finally turned. His eyes were amber. Not brown or hazel, but true amber. The color of ancient resin with something predatory burning behind them. They fixed on me with the weight of an apex predator's stare, and I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only stand there while he studied me like I was prey he was considering devouring. Then he spoke, and his voice was deep and cold and absolutely certain. "You're younger than I expected." It wasn't a question. His amber eyes traveled over my face with clinical assessment. "How old?" 21. The words came out steadier than I felt. Something flickered in his expression, too fast to read. "Old enough to understand what you're agreeing to. Old enough to save my pack from dissolution." The words came out sharper than I'd intended, but I was tired of being afraid. If he was going to destroy me, he'd do it whether I cowered or stood tall. A muscle twitched in his jaw. Behind him, Varen cleared his throat. "My lord, if we could proceed with the ceremony." "I'm speaking to my bride." Lord Casimir didn't look away from me, but the temperature in the clearing seemed to drop 10 degrees. Varen went silent immediately. Lord Casimir studied me for another long moment, and I forced myself not to flinch under that penetrating stare. "You're afraid," he said finally, "but you're standing here anyway." "Why?" "You know why." I lifted my chin. "Silverpaw falls if I refuse. Silverpaw is already fallen." His words were brutal in their honesty. "Your pack is hanging by a thread. One bad winter, one raid, one sickness, and they're gone regardless of what happens here today. So I'll ask again, why are you really standing here?" My hands clenched into fists. "Because I won't let them fall alone. Because they're my family, my responsibility. Because..." I stopped, surprised by the heat of tears behind my eyes. "Because I'm all they have left." Something in Lord Casimir's expression shifted. Just fractionally, but enough that for a heartbeat, I thought I saw something almost human flicker in the depths of his stare. "Then understand this," he said quietly, his voice pitched for my ears alone. "Once we speak these vows, you belong to me. Not as cattle, not as political leverage, but as my mate in the eyes of every pack, every territory, every power that matters. There's no annulment, no divorce, no escape. You'll be Lady of the Northern Reach, and that title comes with blood on it." "I understand." "No, you don't." His hand moved suddenly, catching my chin and tilting my face up to his. His touch was fever-hot against my skin, and I gasped at the sensation. "But you will." Before I could respond, he released me and turned to face the altar. "Begin the ceremony." Varen stepped forward, unfurling a scroll that glittered with official seals. "By the authority vested in me by the Council of Alphas and witnessed by the representatives of Silverpaw, I call upon the ancient laws to bind these two souls in sacred union." I barely heard the words. My chin still burned where Lord Casimir had touched me, a heat that seemed to sink beneath my skin and spread through my blood. What was that? "Lord Casimir Thornridge, Alpha of the Northern Reach. Do you claim this woman as your mate and lady?" "I do." No hesitation, no emotion. Just 2 words that sealed my fate. "Mira Ashmore, last daughter of the Silverpaw bloodline. Do you accept this claim and bind yourself to his rule?" This was it, the moment of no return. I opened my mouth, and somewhere behind me, I heard grandfather make a sound of pure anguish. "I do." The words hung in the air for a heartbeat. Then Lord Casimir's hand shot out, catching my wrist. Before I could react, he'd drawn a small knife from his belt and drawn it across his palm, blood welling dark and red against his skin. "Old blood seals old vows," he said, and slashed the blade across my palm as well. I hissed at the sudden pain, but Lord Casimir was already pressing our bleeding hands together, his fingers lacing through mine with surprising gentleness. The moment our blood mingled, something happened. Power surged between us like lightning, crackling up my arm and exploding through my chest. I gasped, staggering, but Lord Casimir's grip was iron, holding me upright as magic. Ancient, wild, terrifying, roared through my veins. Images flooded my mind. Not images. Memories. His memories. Flashes of violence and blood. A great hall lit by torches. A wolf's face twisted with rage and madness. The weight of a crown settling on dark hair. amber eyes staring out at an ocean of wolves, all of them bowing, submitting, accepting his dominance. And beneath it all, a loneliness so profound it was like staring into an abyss. Then it was over. I stumbled backward, and Lord Casimir caught me around the waist with his free hand, steadying me. Our palms were still pressed together, blood drying between them, and I could feel his heartbeat through the contact, strong, steady, impossibly fast. "What was that?" I whispered. "The bond." His voice was rough, strained in a way it hadn't been before. "It's done. You're mine now." Varen was staring at us with barely concealed shock. "The blood bond," he breathed. "I've never seen it manifest so strongly. My lord, this is..." "Dismissed." Lord Casimir didn't look away from me. "All of you, return to Silverpaw and inform the pack that their sovereignty has been restored. The bride comes with me now." Grandfather stepped forward, his voice shaking. "My lord, please. Let her say goodbye." She said her goodbyes. Lord Casimir's gaze finally released me, turning to pin grandfather in place. "Or did you think I wouldn't know? That I wouldn't smell her tears on the wind, hear her sister's heartbreak from miles away?" He looked back at me. "You're very brave, little wolf. Or very foolish. I haven't decided which yet." Little wolf. The nickname landed wrong, making me bristle. "I have a name." "I know." Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "But you'll answer to both now." Before I could argue, he released my hand and stepped back. "Come. We have a long journey ahead, and I want to reach Thornridge Keep before nightfall." "Wait." Lyra's voice rang out across the clearing. My sister pushed forward through our escort, her face pale but determined. "I'm coming with her." "No, you're not." Lord Casimir's tone left no room for argument. "Please." Lyra moved to stand beside me, taking my hand. "She's my sister. Let me stay with her, just for a few days, until she's settled." For a long moment, Lord Casimir just stared at Lyra. Then, impossibly, his mouth curved in something that might have been a smile if it had contained any warmth whatsoever. "You love your sister very much. More than anything." "Good." His amber eyes moved back to me. "Remember that feeling. You'll need it in the days to come." To Lyra, he said, "You may accompany us to Thornridge Keep. 3 days, then you return home. Don't make me regret this mercy." Lyra's relief was palpable. She squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back, grateful beyond words that I wouldn't have to face whatever came next entirely alone. Lord Casimir turned away, moving toward horses I hadn't noticed waiting at the edge of the clearing. A massive black stallion for him, and 2 smaller mares for Lyra and me. "My lord," Varen called after him. "What of the ceremony gifts?" "The traditional." "There are no gifts." Lord Casimir's voice was flat. "This is a political arrangement, not a love match. We're done here." The dismissal stung more than I'd expected. I watched him mount his stallion with fluid grace, his dark coat swirling around him like living shadow. This was my husband. This cold, brutal wolf who'd just bound me to him with blood magic and declared our union nothing more than politics. I climbed onto my mare with Lyra's help, my hands still tingling where our blood had mixed. That strange awareness I'd felt during the ceremony was still there, pulsing at the back of my mind like a second heartbeat. The bond. What had he done to me? Lord Casimir turned his stallion north, toward the distant mountains where his territory lay. "We ride now. Keep up or be left behind." Then he spurred his horse forward, and I had no choice but to follow. Behind me, I heard grandfather's broken voice calling out a blessing. Heard our escort beginning their journey back to Silverpaw with news of my sacrifice. Ahead, the mountains rose like teeth against the dawn sky, and somewhere in their shadows waited Thornridge Keep. My new home. My prison. The beginning of whatever fate I'd just sealed with blood and magic. I touched my palm where the cut was already healing, faster than it should have. The bond was doing that, I realized. Sharing Lord Casimir's power with me, tying us together in ways I didn't yet understand. And as we rode toward the mountains with the sun rising at our backs, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a bargain with something far more dangerous than a tyrant. Something ancient and hungry and utterly inescapable. Chapter 2. The journey to Thornridge Keep took 3 days of hard riding through mountain passes and dense pine forests. Lord Casimir set a brutal pace, stopping only when absolutely necessary and speaking even less. He rode ahead of us always, his black stallion moving with supernatural grace over terrain that should have been treacherous. Lyra and I followed with Varen, and a small escort of northern reach wolves who'd been waiting at a waypoint. They were silent, watchful men who treated Lord Casimir with a deference that bordered on fear. By the second day, my body ached from the saddle, and my mind churned with questions I didn't dare voice. The bond hummed constantly at the edge of my awareness, a strange connection to the man riding ahead that let me sense his moods even from a distance. He was tense, angry maybe, though at what I couldn't tell. And underneath it all, that same crushing loneliness I'd glimpsed in his memories during the ceremony. Does he always brood like that? Lyra whispered beside me as we made camp on the second night. Lord Casimir had disappeared into the trees immediately upon stopping, leaving Varen to organize the camp. I don't know him well enough to say what's normal. I rubbed my sore legs, grimacing. But I'm starting to think the stories might be understated rather than exaggerated. Lyra helped me spread our bedrolls near the fire. He hasn't hurt you, though. Hasn't even looked at you since we left the stone circle. She was right. Lord Casimir had been meticulously avoiding me. He didn't speak to me, didn't acknowledge my presence, barely seemed to register that I existed. It shouldn't have stung. This was a political arrangement, just as he'd said. But the bond made ignoring him impossible, and his deliberate distance felt like rejection. Maybe that's for the best, I said, settling onto my bedroll. The less we interact, the easier this will be. You don't believe that. I didn't, but I wasn't ready to examine why. Varen brought us bowls of stew and bread, his weathered face kind despite his cold eyes. You'll want your strength tomorrow, Lady Mira. The final approach to Thornridge Keep is dramatic. Dramatic how? You'll see. He glanced toward the trees where Lord Casimir had vanished. The Lord wishes me to tell you that once we arrive, you'll be given chambers and attendants. Your sister may stay 3 days as agreed. Then she returns to Silverpaw with an escort and supplies for your pack. Generous of him, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Varen's expression didn't change. Lord Casimir keeps his bargains, my lady. Always. Your pack's sovereignty is guaranteed, and they'll receive a portion of our harvest this season to help them recover. He's not a kind man, but he's an honorable one. After Varen left, Lyra and I huddled close to the fire. Around us, the escort settled into watch rotations with military precision. 3 days, Lyra said softly. That's all I have to make sure you're safe before I leave you here. I'll be fine. Will you? She turned to face me, her eyes reflecting the firelight. Mira, you're bound to a stranger who barely speaks to you. You're traveling to a keep you've never seen, in a territory known for brutality. And that bond. She gestured at my hand where the cut had healed completely. That's not normal magic. What did he do to you? I don't know. I touched my palm, feeling the faint warmth that still lingered there. But I can sense him, his emotions, his presence. It's like he's always there at the edge of my mind. Can he sense you? The question made me pause. Could he? Was that why he was avoiding me? Because he felt my fear, my confusion, my grief at leaving everything I knew? I think so, I admitted. During the ceremony, I saw his memories. Just flashes, but enough to know that he's been alone for a very long time. That doesn't excuse. I'm not excusing anything. I pulled my blanket tighter. I'm just trying to understand what I'm dealing with. Lord Casimir isn't what I expected. He's not openly cruel or violent. He's just cold, distant, like he's deliberately keeping everyone at arm's length. Maybe he's always been that way. Maybe, but I didn't think so. The loneliness I'd felt through the bond was too profound, too painful to be natural. Something had made Lord Casimir into what he was. And now I was bound to him forever. I lay awake long after Lyra fell asleep, watching the stars wheel overhead and feeling the bond pulse with Lord Casimir's distant presence. He hadn't returned to camp, was somewhere out in the darkness, and through our connection, I could feel his restlessness. Why had he chosen me? What did he want with the Ashmore bloodline that was worth saving an entire pack? The questions chased themselves in circles until exhaustion finally claimed me. I woke to Varen shaking my shoulder gently. Dawn, my lady. We need to move. The third day's journey was shorter, but more treacherous. The mountain path narrowed until we were riding single file along cliff edges with stomach-dropping falls to either side. Lyra went pale but kept her seat admirably. Lord Casimir navigated the path with the same unnerving confidence he brought to everything, never once looking back to check if we followed. Then we crested a final ridge, and Thornridge Keep rose before us. Sweet mercy, Lyra breathed. Varen had called it dramatic. That was an understatement. The keep was carved directly into the mountainside, a massive fortress of black stone that seemed to grow from the rock itself. Towers stretched toward the sky like claws, and walls thick enough to withstand sieges enclosed what looked like an entire city within. But it was the gates that made my blood run cold. Iron barriers twice the height of a man, wrought in the shape of bared fangs. And mounted above them, preserved by some dark art, were 3 wolf heads. Their eyes were empty, their mouths frozen in silent snarls. "Don't look." Lord Casimir's voice came from beside me, and I startled. I hadn't heard him approach. "Those are reminders of a different time. What happened to them?" I couldn't tear my eyes away from the gruesome display. "They challenged my rule." His voice was flat, emotionless. "And learned that mercy is a weakness I can't afford." The gates groaned open before us, and Lord Casimir urged his horse forward. I followed numbly, trying not to look at the heads as we passed beneath them, but feeling their empty stares like a physical weight. The courtyard beyond was organized chaos. Wolves in both human and animal form moved with purpose. Soldiers training, servants rushing between buildings, merchants hawking wares. Every eye turned to us as Lord Casimir's horse clattered across the stones. "Lord Casimir returns," someone shouted, and within seconds a crowd had gathered. Lord Casimir dismounted in one fluid motion, then moved to lift me down from my mare. His hands spanned my waist easily, and that strange heat flared again where we touched. Our eyes met, and something flickered in his amber gaze. Recognition, perhaps, of the same sensation I felt. Then he set me on my feet and stepped back. "My people," Lord Casimir's voice carried across the courtyard with supernatural clarity. "I present Mira Thornridge, Lady of the Northern Reach. Any who show her disrespect answer to me." The crowd fell to their knees as one, heads bowed. My heart hammered. Lady. I was a lady now, standing before hundreds of wolves who could tear me apart with their bare hands if their lord commanded it. "Rise," Lord Casimir ordered. To me, he said quietly, "Come. You need food and rest, and we need to establish some ground rules." He led me through a maze of corridors, each more opulent than the last. I glimpsed training rooms filled with weapons, libraries with shelves stretching to cathedral ceilings, dining halls that could seat hundreds. This wasn't just a fortress. It was a city unto itself, carved from the mountain and ruled by the wolf walking beside me. Finally, we reached a set of carved double doors. Lord Casimir pushed them open to reveal chambers that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the mountains, their peaks still crowned with snow despite the summer season. A massive bed dominated one wall, its dark blue coverings embroidered with silver thread. Tapestries depicting wolves and moonlight covered the stone walls, and a fireplace large enough to stand and crackled with welcoming warmth. "Your rooms," Lord Casimir said, watching my reaction. "They connect to mine through that door." He gestured to a smaller entrance on the far wall. "You'll have attendants. I'm sending Petra. She's been with my household for decades and knows how things work here." And what exactly should I expect? I turned to face him, exhaustion making me bold. "Am I supposed to smile and look pretty while you rule? Bear you heirs? What's my purpose here besides being a political pawn?" Lord Casimir's jaw tightened. "You're my mate, my lady. That means..." "It means nothing until you tell me what it means." I moved closer, craning my neck to meet his eyes. "You felt it too, didn't you? When our blood mixed. That connection. What was that?" For the first time since I'd met him, Lord Casimir looked uncertain. He turned away, moving to the windows. "The blood bond is ancient magic," he said finally. "It ties mates together, lets them sense each other's emotions, sometimes even share thoughts. It's meant to strengthen the connection between alphas and their chosen partners. And you didn't think to warn me before cutting my hand open? Would it have changed your answer?" He glanced back at me. "You were always going to say yes. For your pack, your family. Don't pretend otherwise." He was right, and I hated him for it. "So now we're connected forever," I said bitterly. "And I have no say in it." "You had a say." Lord Casimir's voice went cold. "You said I do. Everything else is consequence." My temper, already frayed by fear and exhaustion, finally snapped. "Then tell me the consequences. Tell me what to expect from a husband who mounts heads on his gates and rules through terror. Tell me." My voice broke despite my best efforts. "Tell me if I should be afraid of you." The silence that followed was absolute. Lord Casimir stared at me, and I watched emotions flicker across his face too fast to name. Finally, he crossed the distance between us in 3 long strides, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "Yes," he said softly. "You should be afraid of me. I've killed men for looking at me wrong. I've destroyed packs for breathing defiance. I am exactly what the stories say, Mira. A monster wearing a crown. Then why do I feel safe with you?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Lord Casimir went absolutely still. "What? I can feel you." I pressed a hand to my chest where that strange awareness pulsed like a second heartbeat. "Through the bond. And you're not what you're pretending to be. You're angry and you're lonely and you're—" I broke off, shocked by my own boldness. "Careful, little wolf." Lord Casimir's voice dropped to something dangerous. "You're reading things that aren't there." "Am I?" I held my ground even as every instinct screamed at me to retreat. "Then prove it. Show me the monster. Make me afraid." It was a challenge no alpha could ignore, and I knew it. His eyes flashed, brightening to something almost luminous. His hand shot out, catching my throat. Not squeezing, just holding, his palm hot against my pulse point. "You want to see the monster?" His voice had gone rough, inhuman. "You want to know what I really am?" My breath came quick and shallow, but I forced myself not to flinch. "Yes." His eyes blazed brighter, and I gasped as his pupils elongated, becoming distinctly wolfish. His teeth seemed sharper when he spoke next. "I'm not just an alpha, Mira. I'm something older. Something that shouldn't exist. My father was a monster, and his father before him. The curse runs in our blood like poison." "What curse?" I whispered. "The lords of the Northern Reach don't just rule wolves." His hand slid from my throat to cup my jaw, tilting my face up. "We are the wolves. Ancient spirits bound to human flesh by magic so old its origins are forgotten. We're stronger than normal shifters, faster, more dangerous. And the bond." His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and my heart stuttered. "The blood bond with a true Northern Reach lord is absolute. I can feel every emotion that crosses your mind. And you." He searched my face. "You'll feel me too. My rage, my hunger. Everything." My mind reeled. I'd married not just an alpha, but something from the old stories. The legends whispered about the first wolves that walked the earth. "The hunger," I said slowly. "What hunger?" His expression turned predatory. "For you." Before I could respond, he leaned down, his nose brushing along the column of my throat. I froze, heart hammering, as he inhaled deeply. The sound he made was barely human, a low growl that vibrated against my skin. "I can smell your fear," he murmured, lips brushing my pulse point. "But underneath it, there's something else. Something sweeter. Casimir." His name escaped as a breathless whisper. "Do you know what happens?" His mouth moved to my ear. "When a Northern Reach lord claims his mate? It's not gentle. It's not civilized. The wolf takes what it wants, marks what belongs to it. And right now," his teeth grazed my earlobe, sending electricity down my spine. "Right now, every instinct I have is screaming at me to mark you. To make sure every wolf in this keep knows you're mine." My hands came up to his chest. Whether to push him away or pull him closer, I wasn't sure. I could feel his heart racing beneath my palms, as fast as my own. "Then why don't you?" The question hung between us, charged with something I didn't fully understand. Lord Casimir pulled back just enough to look at me, and the conflict in his eyes made my chest ache. "Because," he said roughly, "once I start, I won't be able to stop. And you're already afraid enough." "I'm not afraid of you," I said, and realized it was true. Terrified of the situation? Yes. Overwhelmed by everything that had happened? Absolutely. But Casimir himself, the man who held such iron control despite the supernatural hunger I could see burning in his eyes, that man didn't frighten me. "You should be." But his hand was gentle as it slid into my hair, cradling the back of my head. "You should run from me, Mira, while you still can. It's too late for that." My fingers curled into his shirt. "We're bonded. You said so yourself. There's no running from this." Something in Lord Casimir's expression cracked, and before I could process what was happening, his mouth crashed down on mine. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined a first kiss should be. It was fierce and demanding and tasted of desperation, as if he were drowning and I were air. I gasped against his lips, and Lord Casimir took advantage, deepening the kiss until I was dizzy with it. His arms banded around my waist, pulling me flush against him, and I could feel the inhuman heat radiating from his body. That strange warmth I'd felt before exploded into an inferno, racing through my veins and pooling low in my belly. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lord Casimir rested his forehead against mine. "This is wrong," he muttered, though his hands were still clenched in the fabric of my dress. "You're 21, innocent." "I shouldn't." "I'm your wife," I interrupted, my voice shaking. "And I'm not as innocent as you think. I know what happens between mates." Lord Casimir laughed, the sound bitter. "You know nothing, little wolf. Nothing about what I want to do to you. What the wolf wants." He cut himself off with a curse, stepping back and running his hands through his dark hair. "This is why I tried to stay away from you on the journey here. The bond makes everything harder. Makes me want things I have no right to want." I touched my lips, still tingling from his kiss. My mind was a chaos of sensation and confusion, but beneath it all, our connection pulsed with awareness. I sensed Lord Casimir's desire, yes, but also his restraint, his genuine concern for me, his fear of becoming the monster he'd described. "What if I want those things too?" The words escaped before my courage failed. His eyes snapped to mine, blazing amber. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because it's inconvenient. Because you're trying to be noble." I moved closer, emboldened by something I couldn't name. "I felt what you felt when our blood mixed, Casimir. You're lonely. You've been alone in this keep for years, surrounded by wolves who fear you, ruling through strength because it's the only thing you trust. And now you have a mate, someone who's supposed to be your equal. And you're trying to push me away before we even begin." "I'm trying to protect you," Lord Casimir ground out. "From you. Maybe I don't want to be protected." I reached up, cupping his face the way he'd done to mine. His skin was fever-hot beneath my palms. "Maybe I want to understand you instead." For a heartbeat, Lord Casimir leaned into my touch, his eyes drifting closed. He looked younger like this, more vulnerable, and I felt my heart twist with an emotion I wasn't ready to name. Then his eyes opened, and they were blazing gold. Not amber anymore, but molten gold that seemed to glow with inner fire. "Mira." My name came out strangled. "Your eyes. Run." The word was barely human, more growl than speech. "Run now, before I do something we'll both regret." But I was frozen, transfixed by the transformation happening before me. Lord Casimir's canines had lengthened into fangs, his nails darkening into claws. His body seemed to vibrate with barely contained power, as if something enormous was trying to break free from his skin. "I can't," his voice broke. "The wolf wants, you smell like." He shook his head violently as if trying to clear it. "Get out. Now." I stumbled backward, but before I could reach the door, Casimir moved. One moment he was across the room. The next he had me pressed against the wall, his body caging mine. One hand braced beside my head, the other pressed flat against the stone, and I could hear the cracking of rock beneath his palm. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and I wasn't sure if he was apologizing for what he'd done or what he was about to do. "I'm so sorry." Then his mouth found the curve of my neck where it met my shoulder, and his fangs sank deep into my flesh. I screamed. Not from pain, though there was pain, sharp and bright and shocking. But the pain was immediately drowned by something else. A wave of sensation so intense it drove the breath from my lungs. Heat exploded through my veins, radiating out from the bite in pulsing waves that made my knees buckle. Lord Casimir held me up effortlessly, one arm wrapping around my waist as he drank. I could feel his satisfaction, his desperate need, the way my blood seemed to feed something wild and ancient in him. And beneath the fear and shock and overwhelming sensation, I felt something else. A sense of rightness, as if this was what our connection had been reaching toward all along. As if his mark on my skin was completing something fundamental between us. When Lord Casimir finally pulled back, his mouth was stained with my blood. His eyes were still gold, still wild, but there was horror in them now as they focused on my face. "What did you do?" I whispered, my hand flying to my neck. I could feel the wound deep and clean, already beginning to heal with supernatural speed. "I marked you." Lord Casimir's voice was raw, destroyed. "The mating mark. I didn't mean to. I tried to fight it." He stepped back, staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. "I'm sorry. Gods, Mira, I'm so sorry." But I wasn't listening, because something was happening to me. Something impossible. The mark on my neck was burning, spreading heat through my entire body. And with that heat came power. Wild primal power that made me gasp and stumble. What's happening to me? I looked down at my hands and saw them beginning to glow with a faint golden light. Shock registered across Lord Casimir's features. That's not possible. What's not possible? My voice rose in panic as the glow intensified. Casimir, what did you do to me? The mark. He moved toward me, catching me as my legs gave out. It shares my power with you. That's what the mating mark does. But you're human. You shouldn't be able to channel it. You should just heal faster, be stronger. Not. He broke off as I convulsed in his arms, my back arching as something enormous and terrible moved beneath my skin. I could feel it, a presence in my mind that hadn't been there before. Ancient and wild and achingly familiar. No, Lord Casimir breathed, his arms tightening around me. No, this can't be happening. Make it stop, I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. Please, Casimir, make it stop. I can't. His voice broke. Mira, I don't know how. This has never happened before. The mark shouldn't awaken anything in a human. You should just heal faster, be stronger. Not. He cursed in a language I didn't recognize. Not this. Not what? I gasped out between waves of pain and power. What's happening to me? Lord Casimir looked down at me, and in his golden eyes, I saw wonder and terror in equal measure. You're transforming, he whispered. The mark is turning you into one of us. Into a wolf. My scream echoed through Thornridge Keep as my world shattered and reformed. And the last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was Lord Casimir's face, twisted with guilt and something that might have been grief. Then there was nothing but the fire in my veins and the howl of something ancient waking up inside my soul. Chapter 3. I woke to silver moonlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the sensation of silk sheets against my bare skin. For a moment, I lay perfectly still, trying to remember where I was and why every nerve in my body felt like it had been struck by lightning. Then it all came flooding back. The mark. Casimir's fangs in my throat. The terrible burning transformation that had torn through me like wildfire. I sat up abruptly, and the world exploded into overwhelming sensation. I could hear everything. Guards walking 3 floors below, wind whistling through arrow slits in distant towers, the heartbeats of a dozen wolves somewhere in the keep. I could smell everything too, stone and steel, blood and sweat, and underneath it all, a scent that made something in my chest purr with recognition. Pine and winter frost and something wild. Casimir, you're awake. My head whipped toward the voice, and I found him sitting in a chair by the fireplace, watching me with those impossible eyes. He looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept in days, dark circles shadowing his sharp features. How long? My voice came out rough, and I was shocked by the sound of it. Richer somehow, carrying an undertone of something predatory. 4 days. Lord Casimir stood, moving toward the bed with careful slowness, as if approaching a spooked animal. Your body was fighting the change. I thought. He stopped, jaw clenching. I thought I'd killed you. I looked down at myself. At hands that seemed the same, but felt fundamentally different. I was wearing a silk nightgown I didn't remember putting on, and when I touched my neck, I found smooth skin where the bite should have been. Only a faint scar remained, raised and sensitive. What am I now? I whispered. A shifter. Lord Casimir stopped at the edge of the bed, hands clenched at his sides, as if restraining himself from reaching for me. The mark shared my power with you, but your body had latent wolf blood. It must have been dormant for generations in the Ashmore line, waiting for a catalyst. My bite awakened it. Wolf blood. My mind reeled. That's impossible. The Ashmore line is human. We've always been human. Somewhere in your ancestry, there was a wolf. His gaze searched my face. And now that blood has manifested. You're one of us, Mira. A true shifter, bonded to an ancient lord. Do you understand what that means? That I can never go home. The words came out flat, emotionless, but I felt grief clawing at my throat. My family won't recognize what I've become. You are home. Lord Casimir's voice was quiet but firm. The northern reach is your home now. These wolves are your pack. And he stopped himself, jaw working. I am responsible for what you've become. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt his guilt like a physical weight through our bond. You didn't mean for this to happen. That doesn't change what I did. Lord Casimir turned away, moving to the window. I marked you without permission. Turned you into something you never asked to be. You should hate me. I don't. The words surprised me as much as they seemed to surprise him. He turned back, confusion clear on his face. Why not? Because I can feel you. I slid off the bed, my new body moving with a grace I'd never possessed before. Your guilt, your fear. And underneath it all, I moved closer. Your loneliness. Stop. His voice was strained. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I reached out, my hand hovering over his shoulder. I didn't touch him, but I could feel the heat radiating from his body. You've been alone for years. And now you finally have someone who can't run from you. Someone who's bound to you by magic and blood. And you're terrified of destroying me the way your father destroyed your mother. Lord Casimir spun to face me, his eyes blazing. How do you? I saw your memories when our blood mixed. Your father, your mother, what his mark did to her. For a long moment, Lord Casimir just stared at me. Then his shoulders sagged, and he looked more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. Then you know why I'm terrified, he said. My mother survived the mark for 3 years before it consumed her. She burned out from the inside, and his voice broke. I watched her die screaming, and I was too young, too weak to help her. And now I've done the same thing to you. I'm not your mother. I finally closed the distance between them, taking his hands in mine. Their connection flared to life, and I felt his surprise at how strong I felt. The mark awakened something in me, Casimir. Something that was always there. I'm not burning out. I'm becoming what I was always meant to be. You don't know that. Neither do you. I squeezed his hands. So instead of assuming the worst, why don't we see what happens together? Before Lord Casimir could respond, a sharp knock sounded at the door. His expression immediately shifted, the vulnerable man disappearing behind the mask of the Northern Reach Lord. Enter, he commanded. A lean man with dark hair shot through with silver stepped into the room. His eyes widened slightly when they landed on me. My lord, my lady, you're awake. Varen. Lord Casimir's voice was hard. What's happened? Trouble at the eastern border. Someone sent soldiers across our territory. They're claiming it was an accident, but... Varen's gaze flickered to me again. They were specifically asking about the human bride. The one you just married. Ice flooded my veins. Why would they want me? Because word has spread, Varen said grimly. The Northern Reach Lord has taken a mate. And there are those who see that as an opportunity to test your strength, or exploit a potential weakness. How many soldiers? Lord Casimir's voice went deadly quiet. 50, maybe more. The patrol is holding them back, but they're outnumbered. Lord Casimir was already moving toward his weapons, strapping on sword and daggers with practiced efficiency. Ready my guard. We ride within the hour. Casimir, wait. I grabbed his arm. This is a trap. They want you to rush out angry and reckless. He looked down at me, and something in his expression softened fractionally. They've invaded my territory and threatened my mate. I won't hide behind these walls. I'm not asking you to hide. I lifted my chin. I'm asking you to take me with you. Absolutely not. I'm not weak anymore. I pulled my hand back and felt power surge beneath my skin. Golden light flickered around my fingers, and both men stared. Whatever I'm becoming, it's more than just a wolf. The mark gave me something else, something I can feel but don't understand yet. Which is exactly why you're staying here, Lord Casimir said firmly. You don't know how to control your power. You don't know how to fight. And I won't risk. You don't get to decide that. My eyes blazed. I'm your mate, remember? You're equal. Not some fragile thing to be locked away for safekeeping. Varen cleared his throat. She has a point, my lord. And if they're specifically asking about her, bringing her might give us an advantage they don't expect. Lord Casimir looked between us, clearly torn. I felt his warring instincts through the bond. The need to protect me battling with his recognition that I was right. Fine, he finally ground out. But you stay close to me. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood. I smiled, feeling my new fangs press against my lip. Understood. Within the hour, we were riding out with 20 wolves flanking us on all sides. I wore leather armor that Varen had provided, supple and light, dyed the deep crimson of the Northern Reach colors. Lord Casimir had armed me with a silver dagger, though we both knew my real weapon was the power thrumming beneath my skin. The eastern border was several hours' hard ride through mountain passes and dense forest. With every mile, I felt my new senses sharpening. I could smell the wolves around me, distinguish each individual scent. I could hear their whispered conversations, feel the nervous energy crackling through the group. But most of all, I could feel Casimir. He rode beside me, his presence a constant warmth at the edge of my awareness. and his fear for me was palpable despite his controlled expression. "Tell me what to expect," I said as we crested a ridge. "A fight." Lord Casimir's voice was grim. "Whoever sent these soldiers wants blood. They'll have poisoned weapons, wolfsbane extract. One cut, and most shifters are paralyzed within minutes. Most shifters. The ancient bloodlines are more resistant. But even I can be overwhelmed if they dose me enough." His hand moved to his sword hilt. "That's why you need to stay back. If it comes to combat, and if I can help." Lord Casimir looked at me, his amber eyes searching my face. "Then help. But don't try to be a hero, Mira. I've ruled for years without anyone to worry about. I don't know how to fight and protect someone at the same time." "Then don't protect me," I said steadily. "Trust me to protect myself." Before he could respond, one of the scouts ahead raised a hand in warning. We'd reached the border. The valley below was in chaos. Northern Reach wolves in their battle forms fought against soldiers in dark armor, and even from a distance, I could see the unnatural sheen on their weapons. Poison blades. "There are more than 50, Varen said grimly. "Closer to 100. Lord Casimir's expression went cold. "Then we even the odds." He looked at me one last time. "Last chance to stay back." "Not a chance." I drew my dagger, feeling power surge in response. "Let's show them what happens when they threaten the Northern Reach." The battle was brutal and chaotic. I found myself in the thick of it within moments, my body moving on pure instinct. I was faster than the soldiers, stronger than I had any right to be, my dagger finding gaps in armor with supernatural precision. But it was when the first soldier's poisoned blade grazed my arm that everything changed. Pain exploded through my limb, and I stumbled. The soldier grinned, raising his sword for a killing blow. "Not so tough now, wolf bitch." His words cut off as golden light erupted from my wound. Not just light, healing magic, pure and ancient, burning away the poison before it could spread. The soldier's expression morphed to terror as I straightened, my wound already closing. "My turn," I said and struck. Around the battlefield, I felt something responding to my power. The poisoned wolves. I could sense them, feel their pain through connections I didn't understand. And without thinking, I reached for them. Golden light spread from me in waves, touching each fallen wolf, burning away poison wherever it landed. Wounded shifters rose, renewed, fighting with coordinated precision. "Impossible," someone shouted. "She's healing them." Lord Casimir appeared at my side, his fur matted with blood, but his eyes blazing with pride. He shifted back to human form just long enough to say, "You're magnificent." Then the enemy soldiers broke and ran, fleeing into the forest, leaving behind their wounded and weapons in their haste to escape. As silence fell over the valley, I collapsed to my knees exhausted. I'd never used so much power at once. Every muscle trembled, and my vision swam. "Mira." Lord Casimir caught me before I hit the ground. "You overdid it. You need to rest." "Did we win?" I whispered. "We won." He pressed his forehead to mine. "You won. Whatever that power is, it changes everything." Varen appeared, looking between us with a mix of shock and calculation. "The lady can heal poison. The weapon that's been devastating our people for years, she can cure it." Lord Casimir's arms tightened around me, which means she just became the most valuable person in the Northern Territories, and the most dangerous target. I wanted to respond, but exhaustion pulled at my consciousness. The last thing I heard before darkness claimed me was Lord Casimir's voice, rough with emotion. "I've got you, little wolf. You're safe. I promise you're safe." And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I believed him. Chapter 5. I woke in my chambers at Thornridge Keep with sunlight streaming through the windows. For a moment, I lay still, taking inventory. My body ached, but the exhaustion from the battle was gone, replaced by a humming energy that felt almost normal now. "Almost. You heal faster now." Lord Casimir's voice came from the chair by the window. One of the benefits of being bonded to an ancient bloodline. I sat up, pulling the silk sheet around me. How long was I asleep? 2 days. He rose and moved to pour water from a pitcher. "Your body needed time to recover from using so much magic at once. Petra says you're lucky you didn't burn yourself out completely." "Petra, an ancient healer who's been with my household for decades. She's been monitoring you throughout your recovery." Lord Casimir brought me the water, and I noticed the dark circles under his eyes. She also confirmed what Varen suspected. Your healing magic isn't just normal pack healing. It's something older, something from the first wolves. I drank deeply, my throat parched. The first wolves. Before the packs split into different bloodlines, there were the originals. Wolves who walked with gods and wielded magic as naturally as breathing. Lord Casimir sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to touch me. That power has been diluted over generations, but sometimes it resurfaces in descendants. Usually only in tiny amounts, but you. He shook his head. You have it in full measure. That's what the mark awakened in your ancient Ashmore bloodline. So I'm what? Some kind of ancient wolf reborn. You're the most powerful healer in the Northern Territories. Lord Casimir's voice was grim. Which means every enemy we have will want you dead or captured. The battle at the border was just the beginning. Before I could respond, rapid knocking sounded at the door. Varen entered without waiting for permission, his face pale. We have a problem. What now? Lord Casimir was on his feet instantly. A raven just arrived from Iron Peak. Varen hesitated. From Lord Matthias Blackwood himself. I felt Lord Casimir tense. What does he want? He's calling for a summit. Claims he wants to negotiate an end to hostilities between the territories. Varen's expression made it clear what he thought of that. He's specifically requesting both your presences, the Lord and the Lady of the Northern Reach. My blood ran cold. It's a trap. Obviously, Lord Casimir agreed. But refusing would make us look weak. Like we're afraid. Are we? I challenged. After what we just did to their soldiers. Varen's voice was heavy. Intelligence suggests Blackwood has access to thousands more. And according to our spies, he's been working with someone powerful. Someone who wants the Northern Reach destroyed completely. Who? Lord Casimir demanded. We don't know yet. But whoever they are, they've been stockpiling wolfsbane for years. Enough to poison every shifter in the territories. Varen met Lord Casimir's eyes. Until the lady demonstrated she can cure it. Now their entire strategy is useless. So they'll change strategies, I said slowly. Find another way to kill us. Which is why this summit is dangerous, Lord Casimir said. They'll have had time to plan something new. Something we won't see coming. Then we don't go, I suggested. We send an emissary instead. Show them we're not afraid, but we're not stupid either. That might work, Varen said thoughtfully. If we... No. Lord Casimir cut him off. They specifically requested the lady. If we refuse, they'll know we're protecting her. They'll know she's our weakness. I'm not a weakness, I said quietly. You're the only thing in this world I can't afford to lose. Lord Casimir's voice was raw. That makes you a weakness, Mira. My weakness. The admission hung in the air between us. I felt the depth of his fear through our bond. Not for himself, but for me. And underneath it, something else. Something that might have been love if he'd let himself feel it. Then we need to make me a strength instead, I said, climbing out of bed. I was still wearing the nightgown, but modesty seemed less important than survival. We go to this summit, but we go prepared. We show them that the Lord and Lady of the Northern Reach are not to be trifled with. You don't understand what you're suggesting, Lord Casimir said. If this is truly a trap, then we spring it and survive. I moved to the wardrobe, pulling out riding clothes. You've spent years ruling through fear, Casimir. Always alone, always isolated. But you're not alone anymore. So stop trying to protect me from the position I earned when I became your mate, and start treating me like the lady I am. Silence fell. Varen looked between us, clearly trying not to smile. Lord Casimir stared at me, emotions warring across his face. Finally, he inclined his head. As you wish, my lady. We'll attend the summit together. Good. I began dressing, my movements efficient. When is it? 1 week hence, Varen said. At the ruins of Shadowmere. Neutral ground. Then we have 1 week to prepare. I fastened the last buckle on my leather vest and turned to face them both. Let's make sure whoever's behind this regrets ever challenging the Northern Reach. The week passed in a blur of training and preparation. Petra worked with me daily, helping me understand and control my healing magic. It wasn't just about curing poison, I learned. I could heal wounds, cure sickness, even ease pain with a touch. The power comes from your compassion, Petra explained one afternoon as I successfully healed a wolf's broken leg. The elderly woman's weathered face was kind despite her sharp eyes. The first wolves were guardians as well as predators. They protected their packs not just with strength, but with magic. You carry that legacy in your ancient bloodline. I flexed my glowing hands, marveling at the golden light. Can all wolves with ancient blood do this? Some can heal small wounds. A few can sense illness. Petra's expression turned serious. But what you can do, curing wolfsbane, healing mortal wounds, spreading your power to others, that's unique. That's why you're so dangerous to our enemies. At night, Lord Casimir came to my chambers. Not to my bed. He still kept that line carefully drawn, but to sit by the fire and talk. He told me about his childhood, about watching his father's cruelty grow, about the terrible choice he'd faced at 25 years old. I killed him in front of the entire court, Lord Casimir said one night, staring into the flames. My own father, and when his blood was still wet on my hands, I took his crown and dared anyone to challenge me. You saved your people, I said quietly. I became the monster everyone feared. He looked at me, his amber eyes full of old pain. That's why I never took a mate before you. Why I never let anyone close. Because the lords of the Northern Reach don't love Mira. We consume. We destroy. And I refuse to do to someone else what my father did to my mother. But you haven't destroyed me. I moved to sit beside him. I'm stronger now than I was before. The mark didn't break me, it completed me. You don't know that yet. But his hand found mine, our fingers lacing together. The mark's effects can take years to fully manifest. Then I guess we'll find out together. I leaned my head against his shoulder, feeling his warmth. You keep trying to push me away, Casimir. But it's not working. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not going to break. And I'm certainly not going anywhere. I felt him sigh, his arm coming around my shoulders. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Good thing you married me then. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. And I thought that maybe, just maybe, we were going to be okay. The night before we were to leave for Shadowmere, I couldn't sleep. I stood on my balcony, looking out at the mountains, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety in my stomach. Second thoughts. Lord Casimir's voice came from the doorway. Third and fourth thoughts. I didn't turn around. This is insane, isn't it? Walking into an obvious trap. Completely insane. Lord Casimir moved to stand beside me. Which is why I'm bringing 50 wolves instead of 20. And why Varen is riding ahead with scouts to survey the ruins before we arrive. That won't be enough if they're serious about killing us. No. His hand covered mine on the balcony railing. But your power might be. If you can heal our wolves faster than they can poison them, we have a chance. I looked down at our joined hands. I'm scared. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Lord Casimir turned me to face him. But don't let it control you. You've already proven you're stronger than anyone expected, including me. What if I'm not strong enough? Then we die together. His thumb brushed across my cheek. But I don't plan on dying tomorrow, Mira. And neither should you. He leaned down and kissed me, and I rose on my toes to meet him halfway. It was different from their first kiss. Less desperate, more tender. A promise rather than a claiming. When they broke apart, Lord Casimir rested his forehead against mine. Come back to bed. You need rest. Will you stay? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Just to sleep. I don't want to be alone tonight. Something flickered in Lord Casimir's eyes. Are you sure? I'm sure. They lay together in my massive bed, me tucked against Lord Casimir's side, his arm wrapped protectively around me. I could hear his heartbeat beneath my ear, steady and strong. Casimir, I whispered. If tomorrow, nothing will happen. But if it does, I lifted my head to look at him. I want you to know that I don't regret any of this. Not the marriage, not the mark, not becoming your mate. You gave me a purpose bigger than just surviving. You made me a lady. Lord Casimir's hand came up to cup my face, his expression more open than I'd ever seen it. You were always a lady, Mira. I just gave you a territory. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I felt heat building between them. But before it could go further, Lord Casimir pulled back with a rueful smile. Sleep. We have a long ride tomorrow. I settled back against his chest, feeling safer than I had in weeks. Whatever tomorrow brought, we would face it together. And that was enough. Chapter 5 complete. Chapter 6. The ruins of Shadowmere rose from the landscape like broken teeth. Ancient stones jutted from a barren plateau, remnants of some long-dead civilization. I had expected something grand. But this was just empty and desolate. The perfect place for an ambush. I don't like this, Varen muttered, his hand on his sword hilt. The scouts reported minimal activity. Too minimal. which means they're hiding. Lord Casimir's eyes scanned the horizon. Mira, stay close. If anything happens. I know. I touched the dagger at my belt, feeling my power humming beneath my skin, ready to be called forth. We've been over this. We'd brought 100 wolves this time. A significant force, but still nowhere near enough if Blackwood had brought an army. The wolves fanned out as we approached the ruins, moving with practiced coordination. As we passed between two standing stones that marked the entrance to the ancient site, I felt something wrong. A prickling at the base of my skull. A sense of being watched. Casimir, I began. Then the world exploded. Soldiers poured from behind every stone, from trenches dug into the plateau, from concealed positions all around us. Not 100, not even 1,000. Thousands. My heart stopped as I realized the scope of the trap. We were completely surrounded. Arms! Lord Casimir roared, already shifting into his massive wolf form. Around us, his wolves did the same, forming a protective circle around me. But it was futile. For every enemy they cut down, 2 more appeared. And worse, these soldiers weren't using wolfsbane. They had something new. I watched in horror as one of our wolves fell, not from poison, but from a strange paralysis that spread from where a dart had struck him. What is that? I shouted to Varen. I don't know. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts, fighting desperately. Some kind of dart. Not poison, pure paralytic. More wolves fell. The paralysis was instant and total. They weren't dead, but they couldn't move, couldn't fight. And without them, my protective circle was shrinking fast. I felt Lord Casimir's rage and desperation through our bond. He was cutting through enemies with brutal efficiency, but there were too many. They were going to be overwhelmed. Mira, Lord Casimir's mental voice crashed into my consciousness. You have to run. Now. I won't leave you. You have to. One of us has to survive to warn. He never finished. 3 darts struck him simultaneously, and the Northern Reach Lord collapsed mid-lunge, his massive form hitting the ground hard. Casimir! My scream tore from my throat. A figure emerged from the ranks of soldiers, clapping slowly. Lord Matthias Blackwood was a tall man with silver hair and a cruel smile. Magnificent, he said. The mighty Northern Reach Lord, brought low by simple chemistry. Did you really think I'd make the same mistake twice, girl? Wolfsbane can be cured by your little gift. But this, he held up one of the darts. This is pure paralytic. No magic can touch it. No healing can cure it. My mind raced. I could sense Casimir. He was alive, conscious, but completely immobilized. Around me, the last of the standing wolves fell. It's over, Blackwood continued, walking closer. The Northern Reach is finished. The territories will be scattered. And you, his eyes gleamed with malicious intent. You're going to watch him die, knowing you failed to save him. No. My voice was quiet, but something in my tone made Blackwood stop. No, he laughed. Girl, you're surrounded by 5,000 soldiers. Your wolves are down. Your lord is paralyzed. What exactly do you think you can do? I looked at Lord Casimir's fallen form, felt his fury and fear through our bond, looked at the wolves who'd fought to protect me, now helpless on the ground, looked at Blackwood, so certain of his victory, and I made a choice. This, I said, and reached for the power inside me. Not just my healing magic, not just the wolf strength the mark had given me. I reached for the bond itself, for that connection to Casimir that ran deeper than blood or magic. And I pulled. Power exploded from me like a shockwave. Golden light so bright that soldiers screamed and covered their eyes. I felt it racing through me, into Casimir, into every fallen wolf connected to our pack. But I didn't just heal them. I gave them my strength, my power, my absolute refusal to let them fall. Lord Casimir's eyes snapped open, blazing with borrowed magic. The paralysis that should have kept him down for hours burned away in seconds as my power flooded him. Around us, every fallen wolf began to glow with the same golden light, the paralytic dissolving from their systems like ice in sunlight. Impossible! Blackwood stumbled backward, his confidence crumbling. That's not, you can't. Lord Casimir rose, his massive wolf form now wreathed in golden flame. What did you do? His mental voice was full of wonder. I shared everything. I gasped, feeling the strain of maintaining the connection to so many wolves at once. I don't know how long I can hold it. Then we'd better make it count. What happened next would be spoken of in legends for generations. The wolves of the Northern Reach, empowered by their lady's ancient magic, tore through Blackwood's forces like wildfire through dead wood. Every wound healed almost as fast as it was inflicted. Every fallen wolf rose renewed. They were unstoppable. Blackwood's soldiers broke and ran, fleeing in terror from an enemy they couldn't kill. Most scattered into the wilderness, but our wolves were faster. Within minutes, the plateau was littered with the dead and wounded, and Lord Blackwood himself was backing away, looking for an escape. But he found himself surrounded, cut off from retreat by wolves who'd encircled him. Going somewhere? My voice carried across the battlefield, amplified by my power. Blackwood spun to face me, reaching for a weapon, but Lord Casimir was there in an instant. He shifted back to human form, one hand at Blackwood's throat, lifting the man off his feet. "You made a grave mistake," Lord Casimir said quietly. "You threatened my mate, my lady, and now you're going to tell me everything. Who planned this? Who's been stockpiling poison and weapons? Who wants the Northern Reach destroyed?" "Go to hell," Blackwood spat. Lord Casimir's grip tightened, and Blackwood began to choke. "Wrong answer. Casimir, wait." I approached, my power still blazing around me. I could feel it draining me, burning through my reserves, but I held on. "Let me try something." I placed my glowing hand on Blackwood's forehead, and suddenly I was inside his mind. Not just surface thoughts, deeper. Memories. Plans. Conspiracies. I saw it all. The mysterious benefactor who'd approached Blackwood years ago. The promises of power and wealth. The systematic campaign to turn the territories against each other. And at the center of it all, a name. Lord Declan Ashford of Crimson Vale. The king's own cousin, next in line if the royal bloodline failed. I pulled back, gasping. It's Lord Ashford. He's been planning this for years. He wants to unite the territories under his rule by making us fight each other. The king's cousin? Varen had appeared, bloodied but alive. But why? Because the current king made peace with the smaller packs, Lord Casimir said grimly. And Ashford sees that as weakness. He wants to prove he's stronger by doing what the king never could, consolidating all power under one ruler. "There's more," I said, my voice shaking. "He knows about me, about what I can do. He's already planning his next move, an army 10,000 strong, marching within the month." I never finished. The strain of holding so much power, of healing and strengthening 100 wolves simultaneously, finally became too much. The golden light flickered and died, and I collapsed. Lord Casimir dropped Blackwood instantly, catching me before I hit the ground. "Mira, stay with me." "I'm okay," I whispered, but my vision was swimming. "Just used too much." "You used everything." Lord Casimir's voice was rough with emotion. "You gave us all your strength. You saved us all." He looked up at Varen. "Secure Blackwood. We're taking him back to Thornridge Keep for questioning. Get our wounded ready to move. We leave immediately." "What about Lord Ashford?" Varen asked. Lord Casimir's expression went cold and deadly. "Let him come. After what he tried to do today, after what he planned to do to my mate, I'm going to enjoy destroying him." Chapter 7. The journey back to Thornridge Keep took 3 days with our wounded. Blackwood was bound and guarded, though he remained defiant. I drifted in and out of consciousness, my body struggling to recover from the massive power drain. When I finally woke fully on the 3rd day, I was back in my chambers. Lord Casimir sat beside my bed, holding my hand, his expression haggard. "You scared me," he said quietly when he saw my eyes open. "You've been unconscious for days. What happened?" I tried to sit up, but my body felt like lead. "Did Blackwood?" "Blackwood is being interrogated as we speak. He's told us everything he knows about Ashford's plans." Lord Casimir helped me sit, propping pillows behind me. "The king's cousin has been building this conspiracy for years, using Blackwood as his puppet. And now Blackwood will stand trial before the Council of Alphas." Lord Casimir's jaw tightened. "He won't survive it. What he did, attacking under a peace banner, using forbidden weapons, those are capital crimes." I processed this. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy for Blackwood, but I remembered the glee in his eyes as he'd watched Casimir fall. "And Lord Ashford has declared war." Lord Casimir's voice was flat. "Official proclamation arrived yesterday. He's calling the Northern Reach a threat to territorial stability and demanding that all neighboring packs join him in bringing us down. How many are listening?" "Too many." Lord Casimir looked exhausted. "The smaller territories are afraid. They're joining Ashford's coalition. Within weeks, we'll be facing the combined forces of 5 territories. Maybe more. How many soldiers is that? 10,000, possibly more. He squeezed my hand. Against our 3,000 wolves across all the northern reach. My blood ran cold. Those odds are impossible. I know. Lord Casimir's voice was heavy. I've been calling every pack leader, every alpha I can reach. Some are willing to fight. Others want to flee north, abandon our lands entirely. And some. He stopped, shaking his head. Some want to surrender me. I finished. They think if we give Ashford the healer lady, he'll leave the rest of you alone. Would he? No. But desperate people believe desperate lies. Lord Casimir's amber eyes met mine. I won't give you up, Mira. No matter what any alpha demands. You're my mate, my lady, and I'd burn the territories before I let anyone take you from me. The fierce possessiveness in his voice sent heat through my chest. So what do? We fight. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. We gather every wolf who's willing. We prepare for the biggest war our kind has seen in generations. And we hope that whatever power you showed at Shadowmere can be used again, because without it, we don't stand a chance. Before I could respond, the door burst open. A young wolf, breathless and wide-eyed, stumbled in. My lord, my lady. You need to come quickly. He gulped air. There's something happening in the courtyard. Wolves from across the territories. Hundreds of them. And they're all asking for the lady. Lord Casimir was on his feet instantly, his hand moving to his sword. Is it a challenge? An uprising? No, my lord. The young wolf's face broke into a smile. They want to pledge loyalty to her. Lord Casimir helped me into a robe, and together we made our way to the main courtyard. What we found took my breath away. Hundreds of wolves filled the space, more arriving every minute. All of them kneeling with their heads bowed. The gesture of absolute submission and loyalty. What's happening? I whispered. An elderly alpha rose from the crowd, his weathered face solemn. Word has spread, my lady, of what you did at Shadowmere. How you saved 100 wolves from certain death. How your power healed wounds and burned away paralysis. He knelt again. We come to offer ourselves to your service. To fight for the northern reach. To protect the lady who would give everything to save her pack. More voices joined his. For the golden lady, someone shouted. For the healer of the northern reach. The chant spread through the crowd, growing louder with each repetition. I felt tears prick my eyes as I realized what was happening. These wolves weren't just pledging loyalty to the northern reach or to Lord Casimir. They were pledging loyalty to me. I don't know what to say, I admitted quietly. Then show them. Lord Casimir's hand found the small of my back, supporting me. Show them the lady who saved them all. I took a deep breath and let my power rise. Just a flicker. I was still too weak for more. But enough that golden light haloed my body. The crowd gasped, and the chanting grew even louder. I accept your pledge. My voice rang out across the courtyard. And I make you a promise in return. Lord Ashford wants to destroy us. He thinks we're animals to be controlled and conquered. But we will show him what we really are. We are pack. We are family. And we will not go quietly into the night. The wolves howled their approval, the sound shaking the very stones of Thornridge Keep. As the crowd dispersed to prepare for war, Lord Casimir pulled me close. You've done it, he murmured against my hair. You've united the territories in a way I never could. They don't just fear me anymore, they believe in you. I don't want them to believe in me, I said. I want them to believe in us, in what we can build together. Together, Lord Casimir agreed, pulling me closer. Always together. Later that night, back in our chambers, I asked the question that had been weighing on me. The trial. When will it happen? Tomorrow. Lord Casimir's voice was grim. The council demands justice, and they'll have it. Blackwood will face every alpha he betrayed. And then he dies. Lord Casimir's arms tightened around me. I know you have a kind heart, Mira, but there can be no mercy for what he did. He has to serve as an example. Betraying the packs has consequences. I nodded, understanding even if part of me wished for another way. And after, when Ashford's army comes, we make our stand. Lord Casimir's hand came up to cup my face. But before that happens, there's something I need to say. Something I should have said weeks ago. I looked up at him, my heart suddenly racing. What? I love you. The words came out raw, vulnerable. I've been trying to keep that distance because I was afraid of what it would mean. But watching you nearly die twice now, I realize I can't hold back anymore. I love you, Mira Thornridge. More than I've ever loved anything or anyone. I felt tears spill down my cheeks. I love you too. Even though you're stubborn and overprotective and sometimes infuriatingly noble. He kissed me, cutting off my words, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. This was a claiming and a promise and a vow, all wrapped into one. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I rested my forehead against his. We're going to survive this, I said. Together. Together, Lord Casimir agreed. Now and always. Until the mountains crumble and the stars burn out. They spent the rest of the night in each other's arms, knowing that war was coming but choosing to focus on what they'd found in each other. And when dawn came, bringing Blackwood's trial and the preparations for the coming conflict, they would face it side by side. The Northern Reach Lord and the Golden Lady. United. Unbroken. Unstoppable. Chapter 8. Blackwood's trial was swift and brutal. The Council of Alphas convened in Thornridge Keep's Great Hall. 15 territorial leaders, each one hardened by years of rule and survival. They sat in a semicircle while Blackwood knelt in chains at the center, defiant even in defeat. I stood beside Lord Casimir on the raised dais, watching as Varen presented the evidence. Testimonies from captured soldiers. Documents detailing the conspiracy with Lord Ashford. The paralytic darts that had nearly destroyed us. Lord Matthias Blackwood, the council's eldest alpha, spoke, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. You stand accused of conspiracy, attacking under false pretense of peace, and the use of forbidden weapons against your own kind. How do you plead? I plead that I did what was necessary, Blackwood said, lifting his chin. The Northern Reach has grown too powerful. Lord Casimir's control threatens the balance of all territories. Someone had to act. By trying to murder us under a banner of diplomacy? Lord Casimir's voice was ice. By allying with a traitor who wants to turn us all into his subjects. Better Ashford's rule than yours, Blackwood spat. At least he understands that wolves need a firm hand. You've gone soft, Casimir. Taking a human bride, letting her magic make you weak. Lord Casimir moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was beside me, the next he had Blackwood by the throat, lifting him off his feet despite the chains. That human bride saved every wolf on that battlefield. Lord Casimir's voice was deadly quiet, while you cowered behind your hired soldiers. She has more courage in her smallest finger than you've shown in your entire pathetic life. Casimir. I touched his arm gently. He's not worth it. For a long moment, I thought Lord Casimir wouldn't listen. His amber eyes were blazing, his control hanging by a thread. Then, slowly, he released Blackwood, letting the man drop back to his knees. The council will decide his fate, Lord Casimir said, returning to my side. Not my anger. The deliberation took less than an hour. When the council reconvened, their verdict was unanimous. Lord Matthias Blackwood, you are found guilty on all counts, the eldest alpha pronounced. The sentence is death, to be carried out at sunset. May the gods have mercy on your soul, for we will not. Blackwood was dragged away, still defiant, still certain he'd been right. I felt no satisfaction watching him go, only a hollow sense of waste. How many wolves had died because of his choices? How many more would die in the war to come? It's not your fault, Lord Casimir said quietly, sensing my thoughts through our bond. Blackwood made his choices. He faces their consequences. I know. It's just. I gestured helplessly. All of this death, all of this violence. There has to be a better way. If you find it, let me know. His hand found mine, fingers lacing together. Until then, we do what we must to protect our people. The execution took place at sunset in the main courtyard. I stood with Lord Casimir as Blackwood was brought before the assembled wolves. He died as he'd lived, defiant to the last, spitting curses even as the executioner's blade fell. I turned away before it finished, and Lord Casimir's arm came around my shoulders. Come, he said gently. You don't need to see this. He led me back to our chambers, and for the first time since the trial began, I let myself break down. The fear, the exhaustion, the weight of knowing that war was coming, it all crashed over me at once. Lord Casimir held me while I cried, his hand stroking my hair, murmuring words of comfort I barely heard. When the storm finally passed, I pulled back, wiping my eyes. I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from. You've been holding it in since Shadowmere, Lord Casimir said. Since before that, probably. You're allowed to feel, Mira. You're allowed to be afraid. But I'm a lady now. Your mate. I'm supposed to be strong. You are strong. He tilted my face up to his. The strongest person I know. But strength doesn't mean never breaking. It means breaking and putting yourself back together again. And again. As many times as it takes. I leaned into his touch, drawing comfort from his presence. What happens now? Now we prepare. Lord Casimir's expression turned grim. The scouts report Ashford's army is 3 days away. Maybe less. We need every advantage we can get. What about the volunteers? The wolves who pledged to me. They're being integrated into our forces as we speak. With them, we have nearly 2,000 fighters. He paused. It's still not enough against 10,000, but it's better odds than we had. And my power. Can we? I stopped, remembering the exhaustion, the way I'd nearly burned myself out at Shadowmere. Can we rely on it again? Petra thinks so, but she's worried. Lord Casimir pulled me down to sit beside him on the bed. She says what you did, channeling healing through so many wolves simultaneously, should have killed you. The fact that it didn't means your power is growing, adapting. But we don't know your limits yet. Then I guess we'll find them in battle. No. His voice was firm. I won't risk you like that again. Nearly watching you die once was enough. You don't get to decide that. I said gently but firmly. I'm not a possession to be protected, Casimir. I'm your partner. Your equal. And if my power can save lives, I'm going to use it. He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression stopped him. We do this together then. But you promise me. The moment you feel yourself reaching your limits, you stop. Immediately. I can't, his voice cracked. I can't lose you, Mira. Not now. Not when I've finally found something worth living for. You won't lose me. I cupped his face, feeling the bond pulse with warmth between us. I promise. He kissed me then, deep and desperate, and I responded with equal fervor. All the fear, all the uncertainty, all the love we felt. It poured into that kiss until we were both breathless. Stay with me tonight, Lord Casimir whispered against my lips. Not just to sleep. Stay with me, Mira. Let me show you what you mean to me. My heart hammered, but I didn't hesitate. Yes. What passed between us that night was beyond words. Lord Casimir was gentle and fierce by turns, worshipping my body with a reverence that made tears prick my eyes. Through our bond, I felt everything he felt. His love, his desire, his absolute certainty that I was his and he was mine. When we finally lay tangled together in the aftermath, both of us marked and claimed in the most primal way. Lord Casimir pressed a kiss to the mating mark on my neck. Mine, he murmured. Always mine. Always yours, I agreed, feeling the truth of it settle into my bones. And you're mine too, Casimir. Don't forget that. I couldn't if I tried. He pulled me closer, tucking me against his side. The bond won't let me. We lay in comfortable silence, listening to each other's heartbeats, feeling the bond hum with contentment between us. Tomorrow would bring war and blood and uncertainty. But tonight we had this. Each other. And that was enough. Mira. Lord Casimir's voice was quiet in the darkness. Thank you. For what? For not running. For standing beside me. For making me believe that maybe, just maybe, I deserve something good in this life. I lifted my head to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. You deserve everything good, Casimir. And I'm going to spend the rest of our lives proving it to you. He kissed me again, softer this time, and I felt our bond flare with emotion too deep for words. Whatever tomorrow brought, we would face it together. And that made all the difference. Chapter 9. I woke to alarm bells ringing through Thornridge Keep. Lord Casimir was already out of bed, pulling on armor with practiced efficiency. They're here, he said grimly. Ashford's army. They're a day early. My heart hammered as I dressed quickly, strapping on the leather armor that had been prepared for me. Through the windows, I could see wolves rushing to battle stations, the organized chaos of an army preparing for war. How many? I asked, fastening my dagger to my belt. Scouts count at least 8,000. Maybe more. Lord Casimir checked his weapons one last time, then turned to face me. This is it, Mira. Everything we've prepared for comes down to the next few hours. Then let's make them count. I moved to stand before him, rising on my toes to press a kiss to his lips. I love you, Casimir Thornridge, and we're going to win this. I love you too. He rested his forehead against mine for just a moment. Now let's go show Ashford what happens when he threatens the northern reach. We met Ashford's army in the valley below Thornridge Keep. Lord Casimir had chosen the battlefield carefully, narrow enough that superior numbers mattered less, with forest on both sides where our wolves could use their speed and agility. But even with tactical advantages, the sight of Ashford's forces made my blood run cold. 8,000 soldiers in perfect formation, banners snapping in the wind. At their head rode Lord Declan Ashford himself, a man in his 40s with cruel eyes and a smile that promised violence. Wolves of the Northern Reach. Ashford's voice, magically amplified, rolled across the valley. Your lord has led you to ruin. Casimir Thornridge's ambition and his unnatural bond with a human have brought war to your doorstep. Surrender now. Give us the witch who calls herself your lady, and I will let the rest of you live as subjects of a united territory. Never. The roar came from 2,000 throats simultaneously, a sound that shook the valley floor. Ashford's smile widened. So be it. Ready arms. The army behind him shifted, weapons raising, cavalry beginning their charge. This is it, Lord Casimir said quietly, his voice carrying to every wolf present through pack bonds. Remember your training. Protect your packmates. Trust in your lady. And fight like the wolves you are. His eyes found mine across the distance. I love you. I love you too, I whispered, knowing he'd hear it. Now let's end this. Ashford's arm fell, and 8,000 soldiers surged forward with a deafening roar. Lord Casimir's wolves met them with equal fury. The clash of armies shook the ground, the sound of steel on steel and snarls mixing into a cacophony of violence. I stood in the center of our formation, surrounded by 20 of our strongest fighters, my personal guard. Around me, I could feel wolves falling, feel their pain through connections I was still learning to understand. And I reached for them. Golden light blazed from my hands as I channeled healing into the wounded. Not all at once like at Shadowmere. I'd learned that lesson. Instead, I focused on clusters, spreading my power through wolves who could then pass it to others. It was like creating a network, each wolf acting as a node that amplified and distributed my magic. More efficient, less draining, and devastatingly effective. Wolves who should have fallen rose renewed. Wounds closed. Poison burned away before it could take hold. Our fighters pressed forward with renewed strength while Ashford's soldiers began to falter. Impossible! I heard someone scream. They're not falling. Nothing's working. Because they have me, I whispered, my hands glowing brighter as I poured more power into our forces. But Ashford had prepared for this. I saw it too late, saw the soldiers moving into position with weapons I didn't recognize. Long poles with crystalline tips that hummed with unnatural energy. Mira, get down. Lord Casimir's mental shout came a heartbeat before one of the poles discharged. Lightning arced across the battlefield, striking 3 wolves simultaneously. They fell, and I felt their pain, but it was different from poison or paralytic. This was something that targeted magic itself. What are those? I gasped, already reaching to heal the fallen wolves. But my power slid off them like water off glass. The magic couldn't touch them. Nullifiers. Varen appeared at my side, his face grim. Ashford must have hired mages. Those weapons disrupt magic at its source. Your healing won't work on anyone they hit. My stomach dropped. How many does he have? Dozens. Maybe more. As if to prove his point, more nullifiers discharged, dropping wolves across the battlefield. And with each one that fell, our advantage decreased. Lord Casimir fought his way toward me, his wolf form bloodied but unbowed. We need to destroy those weapons. Without them, we can win this. How? I demanded. They're surrounded by soldiers. Then we break through the soldiers. He shifted back to human form, his amber eyes blazing. Varen, take 50 wolves. Hit their left flank hard. Make them think that's our main push. And the real attack? I'm taking Mira and 20 fighters straight through their center. We destroy the nullifiers, and this battle is over. That's suicide, I protested. That's victory. Lord Casimir's hand found mine. Trust me, little wolf. Trust us. I looked into his eyes and saw absolute certainty. Not that we wouldn't die, but that it was worth trying. Together, I said. Always. The charge through Ashford's center was the most terrifying thing I'd ever experienced. Lord Casimir led the way in his massive wolf form, a golden aura surrounding him as he channeled power from our bond. Behind him, 20 wolves moved in perfect coordination, clearing a path. And I ran in their wake, my dagger drawn, my power blazing around me like a shield. Soldiers fell before us. Those who stood their ground were torn apart. Those who ran were let go. We didn't have time to chase. We reached the nullifiers faster than Ashford's commanders expected. Lord Casimir shifted back to human form, grabbed the nearest weapon, and smashed it against a rock. The crystal shattered, releasing a pulse of energy that made everyone nearby stumble. "Destroy them," he roared. "All of them." Our wolves fell on the nullifiers with savage efficiency. One by one, the weapons shattered. And with each one destroyed, I felt my power surge back, stronger than before. "No!" Ashford's voice cut across the battlefield. "Stop them! Kill the witch!" Soldiers converged on our position, but Lord Casimir and our guard held them back. I focused on healing, on strengthening, on making sure every wolf who fell got back up. We were winning. Gods help us, we were actually winning. Then I felt it, a spike of malicious intent through the bond. I turned, searching for the source, and saw Ashford himself charging toward us on horseback, a spear in his hand that glowed with the same energy as the nullifiers. "Casimir!" I screamed in warning. He turned, but too late. Ashford's spear caught him in the side, and Lord Casimir collapsed with a roar of pain. I felt everything through our bond. The agony of the wound, the magic disruption spreading through him, the darkness beginning to close in. "No!" I ran to him, dropping to my knees beside his fallen form. "No, no, no. Stay with me, Casimir. Stay with me." But my healing slid off him, just like it had with the other nullifier victims. The weapon had done something to his magic, creating a barrier I couldn't breach. Ashford dismounted, smiling cruelly as he approached. The mighty lord of the Northern Reach, brought down by a simple spear. How fitting. Rage unlike anything I'd ever felt exploded through me. Not just my rage, Casimir's too, feeding into mine through the bond, amplifying it until my vision went white with fury. "You hurt him," I said, my voice barely human. Power gathered around me in visible waves, golden light so bright it hurt to look at. "You hurt my mate. And now I'm going to kill him." Ashford raised his spear. "While you watch." "No," I said. "You're not." I reached into the bond, into that connection that tied me to Casimir at the deepest level. And I didn't just pull his power into me. I shoved my power into him. All of it. Everything I had. Every ounce of healing magic. Every bit of strength. Every fragment of the ancient wolf magic that ran through my blood. Lord Casimir's eyes snapped open, blazing not with amber or gold, but with pure golden light. The nullifier's disruption shattered under the onslaught of power I was forcing into him. He rose transformed. Not just shifted, something more. Something ancient and terrible and absolutely unstoppable. "You made a mistake," Lord Casimir's voice echoed with supernatural resonance. "You threatened my mate. Hurt my mate. And now you're going to learn why the Northern Reach has stood unconquered for 300 years. What happened next was carnage. Lord Casimir tore through Ashford's remaining soldiers like a force of nature. Every wolf he touched blazed with golden light, renewed and strengthened. Every enemy who faced him fell. And Ashford tried to run. But Lord Casimir was faster. He caught the would-be conqueror at the edge of the battlefield, his hand closing around Ashford's throat. "Wait," Ashford gasped. "I can give you information. Tell you who else was involved. Please." "I don't make deals with those who threaten my family," Lord Casimir said coldly. Then to me, "Mira. He's yours if you want him. Your justice to claim." I walked forward slowly, feeling the weight of 2,000 pairs of eyes on me. Ashford had started this war. Had tried to destroy everything we'd built. Had hurt the man I loved. I should have wanted vengeance. Should have wanted blood. But as I looked at him, at this pathetic, broken man who'd gambled everything on ambition and lost, I felt only pity. "Let him go," I said quietly. Lord Casimir's eyes widened. "Mira, let him go." I met his gaze steadily. "But make sure he remembers. Make sure everyone remembers what happens when they threaten the Northern Reach." Understanding dawned in Lord Casimir's eyes. He released Ashford, letting the man crumple to the ground. "You wanted to unite the territories," Lord Casimir said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent battlefield. "You wanted to prove your strength. Instead, you've proven ours. Go back to whatever hole you crawled from. Tell everyone what you saw here today. Tell them the Northern Reach stands united. Tell them the Lord and Lady are not to be challenged." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something deadly. "And if you ever threaten my mate again, I will find you. And there will be no mercy. No quick death. I will make you beg for the end. Do you understand? Ashford nodded frantically, scrambling backward. Then run, I said softly. And don't come back. He ran. And as he fled, Ashford's remaining soldiers broke, throwing down their weapons and surrendering or fleeing into the forest. The battle was over. We'd won. I felt my legs buckle as the adrenaline finally faded, but Lord Casimir caught me, pulling me into his arms. You spared him, he murmured against my hair. Killing him would have made him a martyr, I said. Letting him live, letting him tell the story of his defeat, that makes him a cautionary tale. Lord Casimir laughed, the sound rough but genuine. You're brilliant. Have I mentioned that? Not today. Then let me remedy that. He pulled back to look at me, his eyes, back to their normal amber now, full of wonder. You're brilliant, Mira Thornridge. Brave and strong and brilliant. And I love you more than I thought possible. I love you too, I whispered. Now can we please go home? I'm exhausted. He swept me up into his arms, ignoring my protests, and began walking back toward Thornridge Keep. Around us, our wolves cheered, the sound echoing across the valley. We'd won. Against impossible odds, we'd won. And as Lord Casimir carried me home, I knew that this love, this partnership, this life we'd built together, this was worth every sacrifice. Worth everything. Chapter 10. 5 years later. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the sound of laughter from the gardens below. Beside me, the bed was empty but still warm. Casimir must have already started his day. I stretched luxuriously, marveling at how much had changed in 5 years. The scars from battle had faded, but the strength remained. My power had grown, stabilized, becoming as natural as breathing. I rose and moved to the window, looking out over what Thornridge Keep had become. The fortress was still there, but now it was surrounded by a thriving city. Northern Reach homes mingled with settlements from other territories. Wolves who'd chosen to make this place their home after the war. So much had changed after the Battle of Shadow Valley, as it had come to be called. Ashford had indeed spread the story of his defeat, but not in the way he'd intended. Instead of frightening other territories, it had inspired them. Within months, delegations had arrived seeking alliance, seeking peace, seeking to be part of what the Northern Reach was building. A territory where strength was measured not just in dominance, but in unity. The Council of Alphas had been reformed, trade routes established, and slowly, painfully, the territories had begun to heal from centuries of conflict. Mama, watch. I looked down to see a small girl with dark hair and amber eyes showing off for her younger brother. At 6 years old, Lyanna was already showing signs of inheriting both her parents' power. Casimir's strength and my healing magic merged into something entirely new. As I watched, she shifted seamlessly into a small wolf pup, her golden fur gleaming in the morning light. That's wonderful, Lyanna, I called down. But remember what we discussed about shifting in the gardens. The roses don't appreciate being trampled. Lyanna shifted back to human form, giggling. Her little brother, 4-year-old Rowan, named after my grandfather who'd lived just long enough to meet his great-granddaughter before passing peacefully, clapped his hands in delight. They're getting stronger every day. Casimir's voice came from the doorway. I turned to find my husband watching me with open adoration. 5 years had been kind to him. A few silver threads in his dark hair, laugh lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. But he was still the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Come here, I said, and he crossed the room to pull me into his arms. I've been thinking, Casimir murmured against my hair. Maybe it's time we took that vacation. Just the two of us. Leave the territory in Varen's capable hands for a few weeks, and remember what it's like to be just Casimir and Mira instead of the Lord and Lady. That sounds perfect. I rose on my toes to kiss him. Where would we go? Anywhere. Everywhere. His arms tightened around me. As long as I'm with you, I don't care. We stood together, watching our children play in the garden of the kingdom we'd built together. A kingdom where wolves no longer lived in fear, where healing was valued over violence, where love had conquered hate. Do you ever regret it? Casimir asked softly. Agreeing to marry me that morning? Giving up the life you knew? Never. I turned in his arms to face him fully. That morning, I thought my life was ending. But it wasn't ending, it was just beginning. Mine too. Casimir pressed a kiss to the mark on my neck. His mark, the one that had started everything. I love you, Mira Thornridge. More today than yesterday. Less than tomorrow. I love you too, I whispered. Now and always. Until the mountains crumble and the stars burn out. We stood together as morning light filled our chambers. Two halves of a whole that was stronger than either could be alone. The northern reach lord and the golden lady who'd found each other in darkness and built something beautiful in the light. And in the garden below, our children laughed and played, growing up in a world where the sins of the past had been healed by their parents' love. A world worth fighting for. A world worth everything. From my position at the window, I saw Lyra, my sister, who now served as an ambassador between territories, arriving with a delegation. She'd grown into a confident, brilliant woman who used her skills to build bridges between packs. She looked up, caught my eye, and waved. I waved back, grateful beyond words that my family had gotten to see what our sacrifice had built. Come on, Casimir said, tugging me toward the door. Our children are destroying the gardens. We have a delegation arriving, and I believe Varen mentioned something about a trade dispute that needs mediating. The glamorous life of ruling, I said with a laugh. Would you trade it? I looked at him. At this man who'd once been called a monster, who'd learned to love because I'd refused to give up on him. At the life we'd built, the family we'd created, the peace we'd forged. Not for anything in the world, I said. And I meant it. The end.